I am here with Chicago Steve, aka XQZ. I know you from the rap battling community. You've been on King of the Dot. I know you started out at No Coast. I think you were running the league for a couple years, and then or I know you're like involved in the administrative and booking and or all that. And yeah, I mean, I've known you in the battle rap community for a while now. Hold on, I have a fan running. I don't know if I should leave it on, but either way, I gotta say, in my opinion, you might be maybe top five scariest people like to battle. Like if I were to think of people that I'm like afraid to battle, like you're on that list for sure. Just because you have the ability to kind of like and we won't get too deep into the rap battle shit, but I'm just gonna give you your flowers while you're here. But yeah, like you have the ability to go into battles and basically kind of like break down your opponent in a way that like the way I think about battling sometimes, right? Because we have like a lot of different styles of rap battles, and some people go out there, they'll be what they call punchers. Then some people are schemers. Other people, like I would call you more of an angler. So I think of angling as like almost like Brazilian jiu-jitsu to a way. Like, it's like punching might just be typical like boxing or something like that. But like angling is so methodical and like the way that it really kind of like can take somebody and break them apart and make them look bad in front of a crowd. Whereas a punch, punch is just, people are going to react to it or they're not going to, but it's not going to be an assault on that person's character or anything like that. And so those are the people that terrified me the most. People who battle like you.
I appreciate it, man. I think we're all. I don't know if can't be true for everybody, but I know for me, like I think a lot of us are kind of biased against ourselves. So I kind of look at what I do. I'm like, that's not that scary. Like let's crack some jokes, and I just try to. I feel like my main goal every time is just say something that I feel like it hasn't been said or no one else would say, which it's a lofty goal, and at the end of the day it's not like I'm the only one who does sarcastic angles and breakdowns. I feel like I'm from a similar cloth to like the Dunches and Fracks and people like that, so everyone's kind of got their like class or little subgenre that they're from. But
Right.
I just yeah, I love that about angling is I feel like you're almost always going to get something kind of original. It's a perspective that, no one else would really come up with. Whereas punching, it's not discrediting that or downplaying that, because it's if you can win battles that way, it's there's some people that are amazing at it, but I feel like it's a little more formulaic. You kind of know, all right, this is your opponent's name, so you're probably going to hear these kind of flips, and it kind of ends up being a little more repetitive to me. But
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
just I've been doing this a long time. I'm just grateful to still have any sort of foot in the game. It's been a really fun ride.
Yeah, so I'm going to divert from rap battling for a little while. And I'm sure it'll probably come back up later just because by the nature of like it's the thing we're both passionate about. It's a big part of our lives. I mean, I guess it goes all the way back. All right, let me just start with where I was going to start. Um, because I have like I have a little bit of an ADHD brain a little bit. I'm not diagnosed formally, but I think about like a lot of different paths that I want to go through and all that other stuff. Do you have any like barriers and I usually kind of give this like a disclaimer like maybe off camera, but like for the most part like and I don't think you seem to care. Like I've listened to your other podcasts. I heard one that you did with your sister. You mentioned like you're an open book maybe. But like I mean I'm willing to talk about anything. We can start it like top 10 porn stars versus like how do you feel on the war on Gaza? Like this
Yeah,
is the
whatever.
level of
Yeah.
But I'm gonna start right here. So, because this is what I'm thinking about lately, and like you seem like you're a health conscious dude to some extent. Like you're into cardio, right? Like you do like running. I think I heard in the podcast I don't know if you're still doing it, but you were taking up hockey for like a little while. Is that just in general,
Yeah.
you seem to be like in shape constantly, kind of like being physically active.
Yeah,
So yeah, go.
that's. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, no, no. You didn't. I was just gonna kind of maybe ask, like, well, I think is that. the number one question would be like, is that something that I think is probably carried with you throughout your entire life? But also like, how is it that you kind of like, what is it that motivates you to do that? What is it like, for me, I'm trying to focus more on it, and maybe like, and especially during the pandemic, I definitely like let myself go, and like, I got up to like 300 pounds at one point, and then like, I dropped, 50 pounds, but like now I'm like, I'm trying to motivate myself to kind of get in better shape than I was. So, I'm looking for a perspective maybe that might be different than my own. So how is it that you get the motivation? What is it that keeps you wanting to do this or stay active?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like that's always been like staying active's always been a big part of my life. Like I mean, I grew up not, I wouldn't say necessarily health conscious, but just being active was just kind of the norm. I'm a huge sports guy, so growing up it was baseball and football and anything I could get involved in. But I didn't necessarily stick with that. Like as I kind of got into adulthood, I did sort of fall off the wagon a little bit. And actually, I kind of weirdly enough, kind of what got me back into it was I kind of hit this point in like my like quarter life crisis type thing where I was just like, holy shit, I'm an adult now. Like, are my best years behind me? What am I doing with my life? What is the meaning of life? Just got a weird place. And you know, I really there were a couple things I kind of took up during that time, but one of them was kind of getting back into the gym and getting sort of a good fitness routine going because I've kind of realized like if I'm ever at a time in my life where I feel like my core also letting physical health slip, like they're all kind of tied together. And so a lot of it is just for the sake of it feels good. And the other piece of it too, I mean, some of it's just embedded in me. My dad has always been uh, a health nut. My grandfather was too, and he just passed away a year or two ago at 99. So I've seen it paying dividends. If you take care of yourself, you can live a long life. Which not I don't that kind of that's a tall task, but in general, I don't know. I want to be around, and I've just noticed in general, like I feel better when I'm kind of in a good routine. So I just I try to stick to that.
Right. Um, so I'll give you a real quick disclaimer because I had this problem with Oppa too, and I just moved not that long ago, so my internet connection is very spotty. So some of the response that you had kind of broke up a bit, but I'm gonna try to keep it going. But just giving you a forewarning that there might be some issues, but
Okay, well, yeah,
I'm gonna try my best. I don't know why the internet is so bad here.
yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, like you were talking about maybe getting into like being in a weird place of like what is the meaning of life and so forth. And I'm a little bit like I've been kind of there myself over maybe like the last year or so. Just I know you mentioned this in a battle. I don't know if it's true or not. You said I can't remember. I think it was against Ellipsis that you were agnostic since 16, and then I don't know if you actually like you mentioned in the battle how. Let me just ask that question. Where are you like religiously? How do you feel spiritually, and where do how do you view the universe and turning especially when you talk about the meaning of life?
Yeah, I'd say agnostic is probably a good way to describe it. I mean, I was raised Jewish and not, my family's not super religious. It was never like, had to believe in God or read the scriptures or anything like that. Like it was more
Cultural,
culturally than religiously, I would say.
right?
And my understanding of being agnostic is it's the idea that we just we just don't know, as opposed to atheism, which is there's nothing. Like I wouldn't confidently say that. And I don't know if this sounds weird, but like I do believe there's some higher power, higher energy. I think there's just, it's I feel like it's so corny to say, but like I feel like I've just seen enough crazy coincidences and developments in life that I it's hard for me to you know I wouldn't I couldn't confidently say there's just no God, this is all completely random. But at the same time, I'm very far removed from, you know, the the idea of God of most like organized religions. Like I think that all the cliches of it's a way of, manipulating people. I'm not a big fan of like kind of organized mainstream religions, but I guess I'd say I do believe in spirituality. I believe in, the energy of the universe and that kind of woo woo type shit. I guess that would probably best describe uh, my religious beliefs.
Right. So like for me, I don't know, like I don't know that I really believe in the woo-woo shit. I'm also, I would describe myself as agnostic, but I think to most people, like the difference between me being agnostic and atheist is like such a small like margin that it feels like a technicality. But like I wouldn't like see my thing is like I would not claim that there was not a God if I didn't have some kind of proof to that, right? So, even if I were to say that like, oh, I have, I feel based on evidence that like, I don't believe in these particular religions, but that doesn't necessarily equate to there is no God, right? So, but like at the same time, it to me it just seems like, I think humans have a hard time just not knowing, right? They just, don't want to. There's something about humans that, like, just, it doesn't sit right in them to just be like, well, I can't figure this out. So, the best I can do is try to continue to advance science and math and continue to learn more about the universe and dark matter and all these things that we don't have the answers to. But rather, I think there's a lot, there might be some people that want a conclusive answer now. But so, sometimes I think about, because, I'm still, again, agnostic, borderline atheist. And so, I really just don't think that much about, I mean, spirituality that much or religion in general. I just kind of like write it all off as, that's not a thing that I just pay attention to. But
Right.
I do think about, how differently, like, the way I perceive the world is and how differently, like, because something as simple as like, not simple, but like, something as, integral to like being a human as what is the meaning of life, right? Like you have that answer if you're religious, right? You know what the, you look in the Bible, go forth, multiply, you were put on this earth, maybe there's some divine intervention that's, leading you along your path. Whatever it is, there's some level of like, purpose, like you're meant to, like you feel like you're meant to be here for some reason. Whereas if you're agnostic or atheist, or, depending on your level of, agnosticism again, it's all like unknown, right? And that's the scary thing. It's hard to go and navigate through life. To me, it feels sometimes like, bowling but without the bumpers on, right? Like it's just like you can go and you can go into a very bad place, or you like there is nothing, keeping you within the guardrails and the confines of this is how you're supposed to act. This is what you're supposed to believe. This is what's morally right. This is what's morally wrong. You have to figure all that stuff out for yourself. And that's a challenging thing to do that I think that most, like, it's something I never hear anybody talk about, but it's such a profound, different way to live, to have to like be like, okay, I'm going to have to decide for myself, what is ethically right, what is ethically wrong, without being given, the list, right? Like this is the list of what you can do and can't do. And that's a very weird place to be in, a lot, all the time, like 24/7. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, I kind of go into my own spirals of like, I mean, I have focused a lot, just like on, to some degree, I listen to like podcasts of like, really like, intelligent people and I just try to, absorb what I can. But, I don't know. It's just like, I do think that there's, some level of like, religion offers a really good framework for some things. Like it allows people to come together. It allows people to create a localized community. It does allow communities to do good things, right? Like it allows, things like food drives and just in general, just like bringing people in, offering food, food, shelter, all these other things to help better the lives of other people. And that is, one of the beautiful things about religion. And then like, as you mentioned, maybe sometimes, it can also be used in a twisted way to kind of justify doing bad things. And so yeah, it's a really complex and hairy like topic. But I guess yeah, I don't know how we got like I don't know where the transition. Part of it, honestly, is because like your original response was a little bit choppy, and I couldn't catch everything and really be able to kind of take away from it what I want to. But like I guess going now into this topic, like how like what was that for you? Like what was it? Or did you ever come to a conclusion where you felt like, okay, well, this is, for me, for Steve, like, what is, the meaning of what you want to attain from life, and how do you navigate that?
Yeah, it was a process, man. Because I think something I've always struggled with is wanting to have control. And things that I can't control always, used to create a lot of anxiety and stress for me. And that was, that's there's a lot when you think about, the bigger picture and, the universe and, obviously like that's all you can't control death. You can't control what happens, with the billions and trillions of light years around you and so grappling with that it wasn't so much like a religious a question of faith for me, but kind of I got to a point where I think I'm going let me take it back. So to kind of circle back on what you were saying, so like I just kind of look at it as there's pros and cons, and I had to get to a point where I was comfortable not having the answers. I think that's really what it comes down to. Because for a while it was just like, it was just grappling with that, knowing you'll never fully know why you're here. You don't know what happens afterwards. You don't know what the right answer is as far as the path you should follow. And I think, versus finding the answer, the key is to just get comfortable knowing that you don't know. And it's a weird thing, but it's freeing. It's extremely freeing because, again, not that I was a super religious person before, but now it's like you have the power to decide what are your pillars, what is important to you, what are your values. You don't have to look at a religious textbook and say, oh, in Judaism, you're not supposed to, have meat and dairy on the same plate. Like why? What's the logic behind it? Who does that harm?
I'm not very like informed on religion. Do you know if is there like a scriptural reason why that is? Or
I'm
is it
sure
just
there is. I'm sure someone's explained it to me at some point. But that's my point. There's so many of these little arbitrary, I mean, and then, you see how people weaponize it now, to discriminate against, sorry about that. Um, you see how people use, religious scriptures to weaponize it against, minorities and gay people. And so but it's all these little arbitrary rules. It's like, if you think about it logically, why does that matter? Why does it matter if two men want to get married, or
Right.
people get, not to again get on controversial topics or anything, but like I'm
I
just
mean,
saying.
I'm fine with going down controversial. I mean, like
Yeah.
I'm pretty left leaning. I think you are as well. But like so I mean, like yeah, wherever you want to go with it is fine.
But my point is, like, I think it can be intimidating. All those texts and rules and things are out there, but it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, you have the power to decide what's right and what's wrong, and it's intimidating to have that much freedom, but it's also, you know, it's I couldn't live any other way. So I think it was a painful growth process, but on the other side, it's just I've learned to just appreciate this is a crazy world. Absorb all the knowledge and all the crazy stories you can from it, and treat people well, and all the other shit is just extra shit.
Right. You mentioned like so you're Jewish, right? I know you know you're agnostic, you know, religiously, but culturally Jewish, and that even maybe, and I'm just gonna say this because I think there are other people like me who maybe just weren't fully aware of what that means, right? To be like, 'cause, well, more so just to be an American, right? And maybe not. I mean, it depends for you. Like everybody's different. Some people are more aligned with the culture, right, of you know Judaism, or it doesn't have to be you know if you're Muslim or something like that. Even if you're not religious, it's the idea of like you know these people that you know that are within this community that might be more similar to me that grow up with like they grew up with the same traditions and values that my parents did, and my parents might have you know put those you know values into me, and like you know so it's just like you have there's a level of culture that is you know it transcends just you know are you religious or not. So like I guess one thing I was wondering was like as you were growing up, you know, what was your experience being, you know, in terms of Judaism? What was your relationship to the culture, to the religion? Did like how like what was I think I heard in the podcast that like maybe the area that you lived in at one point was you know fairly Jewish. So like what was that overall like for you?
Yeah, for me, it was, and I know everybody's different, but yeah, I did grow up in a suburb of Chicago that's, predominantly Jewish, and but for me, Judaism was like it felt more like some emotions. It was just like something, at birth was kind of assigned to, and now there's certain things I would do, like go to, like for a couple of years of life, went to Hebrew school, and I had a bar mitzvah, which is like for those who don't know, like a ceremony when you turn 13, where it's like you're becoming a man basically. So you read from the Holy
13-year-old
Scriptures.
man.
Yeah, exactly. You're ready to take on the
Say
world.
that in the court of law.
So I kind of, I did those things because, okay, you're a Jewish kid. That's what you do. And then it didn't necessarily like, it didn't mean much to me outside of it's like a box to just check off. But actually, as I've gotten older, I've kind of gained a new appreciation for it, because my wife's Jewish, and which was not like a mandatory, like I have to marry a Jewish person. It just happened
Right.
to work out that way. But she, I wouldn't say she's ultra religious either, but she's definitely like a step above me, and she's kind of brought some customs and values back into my life that I didn't, I think just as a kid, I didn't really fully understand or appreciate. And so there's a good balance. Like just as an example, the Judaism has a tradition called Shabbat, which is basically from sundown. It's basically the Sabbath for Judaism. So from sundown on Friday to sundown on Saturday, depending on how strict you are, you're really supposed to do nothing like that. Technically, you're not supposed to like even shower or use electricity or like do anything, which we don't take it that far, but we do like just kind of pause every Friday night, just have dinner at home, like shut out all distractions and just like unwind and and just
I am basically Jewish every Friday night. All
yeah,
right.
that sounds.
Like,
I'm sure a lot of people have that tradition, but it's about the the setting that intention and just kind of taking a pause and just appreciating you survived another week, and so little things like that. I'm like, okay, that value and that what that represents, I can definitely resonate with.
right.
It's just I think where I struggle is when people take it all too literally and like, oh, if you break any of these rules, you're not, you're fucking it all up. Like, and we don't take it to that extreme, but like, I think to the point you made earlier, like there's certain aspects of it bringing communities together and being charitable and things like that religion encourages. That's a beautiful thing. I think when people kind of take it too extreme or too literal, that's when it kind of gets dicey. But yeah, I definitely appreciate just having that spirituality and having that community, even though it's not. I turned my notifications off. I swear.
Are you
Even
good?
just even though I might not identify with everything from that community, yeah, there's certain comfort in just having people that grew up having, similar experiences to you. So I definitely appreciate it more than I used to.
Right. Um, this is, how did you feel about Christmas? Did you like, were you like envious of Christmas?
Not no lie, I was a little bit. Actually, my mom's sister, my aunt, her husband's Christian, so my cousins were half and half. So I'd get a little bit of the best of both worlds. And actually,
Right.
my ex-wife was Christian, so I for a couple of years I got to do the full Christmas every year, and it's not overrated, man. It's the real deal. I still get like that warm fuzzy feeling when I go downtown and see
Ah,
the Christmas lights and shit. I'm like, all
yeah,
right,
yeah.
like it's Hanukkah's not, it's there's nothing on that level.
Yeah,
It's a
well, so I know I'm gonna fuck this up. So the main Jewish holiday is that Yom Kippur, or is there a different one? Yeah.
yeah, Yom Kippur is the most important
Yeah,
Jewish
so I
holiday.
mean, like, so it's like, yeah, that's the unfortunate thing is that, like, if you're Jewish, it's not even that, like, it's the biggest holiday for you. It's just that it's the one that's closest to Christmas, so that's the only one that they sell merchandise for. But like,
Exactly.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of unfortunate that like it time wise it doesn't line up the right way. I again, atheist almost. I mean, like I still celebrate Christmas every year. It brings back nostalgic memories, and I don't personally have any like ties between like Christmas and religion or Jesus or anything. Like I don't believe that Jesus was even born in December or that he was white or any of that shit. Like historically, there's like evidence to the contrary. But so I just I just figure like, hey, this is just a fun thing. Like it's like, and the idea of like as a kid, this magic, and there's a lot to be said. Also, it's like I don't know what the psychological effect is of like trying to teach kids like, oh, there's this magic man that comes down the chimney and leaves like presents, and oh, by the way, he's not real. After indoctrinating them with this like false information, and then like pulling the rug out and being like, oh yeah, Easter Bunny, Santa, Tooth Fairy, every one of those is a lie.
Yeah, I guess I believe in picking your battles and grabbing the joy of life when you can. Like another like Thanksgiving's a great example because at this point we all know like the actual story of Thanksgiving's pretty fucked up.
Right.
But at the end of the day, my family's getting together, every like most like my office is closed. Like I'm not gonna sit there and like ruin everyone else's time and because opportunities to just get together with your family, like you got to appreciate that even if at the core of it it's maybe
Right.
not something that should be celebrated, but you got to just you got to pick your battles sometimes. And
Yeah.
yep.
You mentioned maybe having anxiety. So can you tell me like how that presents? What is it that I mean, is that because I think maybe I have more I don't know if I have a generalized anxiety, but I know I have a social anxiety for sure.
Yeah.
And part of that is like, just not being able to hear super well, but a part of it I think is also just mental. There's all kinds of things. But so I was curious to know from your perspective, what that looks like. How has it kind of affected you? Maybe negatively. Has it affected you at all positively? And by just like the ability to overcome that within itself is a strength. And I don't know. I mean, like I don't want to speak for you, but like when I see you, like you seem to have a handle on all things that I would consider somebody successful to be. You're very talented. You're very you're a good looking physical, in shape guy. You got you're employed, all that other crap. Like you got your ducks in a row. You're married, all that. So to some degree, I think your anxiety hasn't prevented you from doing all of those things. And so that has to come with some level of like being able to be comfortable with your anxiety. I think it never goes away, right? Or does it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, and sometimes I worry that I don't want to come off like I'm almost like overselling it because there are definitely people who I know struggle with it to a much more serious degrees. I mean, I've had maybe one or two, panic attacks in my life. Like it's not, to your point, I appreciate, the kind words. It's not something that's really impeded me to, go. In fact, it's, I probably have pushed myself more, like, for example, in battle rap, done things I wouldn't have done, just to prove like I'm not going to let, fear or anxiety, prevent me from doing this. To answer your first question, I mean, I've always just been like overthinking has always been big with me. Like just always, from a little kid, it's like thinking through every scenario. Oh,
Right.
what if the worst case scenario happens? Um, I have been diagnosed with mild OCD as well. I've kind of touched on that, like, situations where I can't be fully in control is, that's so big life changes like triggers that. So it's, I don't think it's too unusual from what, everyone deals with from time to time. Um, but I think, really what it's been is just, it's frankly decades of work. I mean, I started going to therapy when I was, I don't know, probably 14 or 15. And, I'm almost 35 now, still do to this day. And I completely agree with what you're saying. Like there is a lot of uh, power and strength in the feeling of kind of overcoming, those times where you're feeling really low and just and knowing like, all right, when I'm on a down slope, it's like, all right, I've gotten through this before. There's going to be a million, peaks and valleys in life. It's just this is what it is. And another thing that I've has been a great tool that I've kind of used from therapy is just my therapist would when I talk about kind of things that I'm worried about or anxious about, she would say, all right, let's say that does happen, or let's go to the worst case scenario.
Hmm.
Then what? And anytime she says then what, there is always the next step. Is okay,
Right.
well, if that happens, then I'm going to do this. And it's just the anticipation is all, I mean, horrible things happen and they're going to happen, but
Right.
the anticipation is what anxiety is. So, if shit happens, you're going to deal with it or you're going to die. Either way, it's not going to be a problem anymore. So you just, you can't, if you let your brain go to that worst case scenario, you realize like, all right, it's, that is what it is. You'll figure it out. So
Yeah.
that's, you know, in battle rap and in higher stakes situations, that's usually kind of my first go to. It's like, in battle rap, it's easy. It's like, okay, I'm worried that I'm going to choke and get booed off stage and get smoked. It's like, all right, if all that happens, like everyone's going to forget about it 2 minutes later. Like life goes on, so it's, you got
Mhm.
to just keep all that shit in perspective. And, it's,
Yeah.
it's always a push and pull, but that's kind of how I try to frame it all, I guess.
I think, well, so I'm gonna push back a little bit here. So I'm thinking about like, even my own experiences, but in battle rap. So battle rap is a very interesting genre, um, because the whole purpose of it basically is to insult your opponent, and basically belittle them. And there are times in battle rap, and sometimes there's a lot of extra stuff that happens, and a lot of it happens online. A lot of like people argue online, and that creates big things. And there are times when something goes wrong for somebody where they'll get communicated from like the entire battle rap scene, or so it's like worst case scenario. That probably is the worst case scenario, is being excommunicated. And so it's like it's a little bit more than just, okay, I did a battle and then like it didn't go well and then people forgot about it. For some people, they do a battle, it goes wrong, and then like for the rest of their life, that's like the thing that follows them. One example, the one that pops up in my mind, which is not even a great example because of who it is, but like Tay Rock, for example, he's always going to be affixed with that like pretend to fight type of like thing, because like somebody, Pat Stay, R.I.P., did an angle against him, I think, and he just kind of like kept hammering it over and over, and then a lot of people just like, oh yeah, he does do that, and then that became his thing. It doesn't really matter with Tay Rock because number one, like battle rap is battle rap. Nobody really cares. I mean, there are people that act like they care if you can fight or not, but like the reality is that like Tay Rock is so fucking talented, he could just keep on rapping and nobody's gonna hold it over his head. But there are other examples like that, where whatever happens in a rap battle can follow you for a long period of time. It can be worse than, or you could just do really badly and like it can, look bad for you. But I think, there's definitely a level of overthinking and over catastrophizing how bad it could get. I deal with that for sure with rap battling. Just thinking like that's what I was saying about you as an angler too, because like I know it's like the people that are gonna do research on me, those are the people that fucking scare the shit out of me because there are so many there like I do this podcast, right? Like I'm like literally I will put whatever information there is about me out there, and that is just like fodder, right? Like that's like it's just an endless like uh all kinds of angles and stuff somebody could use against me. So I'm always scared of that, but you kind of have to, if you want to battle, you got to, deal with it. But in terms of anxiety and like, I feel like I do kind of the same thing where I just like overthink all the different possible scenarios and I try to prepare for them. The problem is that like by the end of it, I just end up like feeling burnt out. I feel like, okay, I spent all this time figuring out what the worst case scenario is or all these other scenarios and being prepared for them. And then, once you actually get to that actual point, either the worst thing happens or something that's not as bad as the worst thing happens. And then, you're prepared for it, but then like, you just, used all this energy. You like it's the amount of energy that you have to use to prepare for every scenario is so much that it by the time you have to prepare for the one scenario, it feels like more draining, I think. I don't know. To me, I think you were mentioning in like one of your battles, and I don't again like not everything somebody says in a battle is 100% true. Sometimes it's like for a bar, or it's just like meant. But did you? I think it was again with ellipsis, maybe mentioning like you had anxiety blankets or something. Have you ever actually used those? Or I've never.
I I've had them in my household. They weren't necessarily for me, but I mean, hey, I'm not. I see the merit in it. I mean, I'm a big like. I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm a homebody. Like I love to travel. I'm a lot more outgoing. The last I don't know 5 or 6 years than I used to be. But shit, it's still not. Most nights nothing sounds better than like getting cozied up on the couch, putting a game on or whatever. So like, hey, I like feeling in a safe comfortable spot. So
Right. Well, I was gonna say
yeah.
though, like I don't I've never used one, so I don't know the difference. Is it just heavier? Is that like the only difference?
Yeah, it's just weighted. It
I
just
feel
yeah.
like that would give me more anxiety. I don't know. It's just like the idea of something
It's,
pushing down on me. It's just like I don't know. I
yeah,
like to be free. Like
it just
in another world, I was probably like in a nudist colony or something, right? Like I don't want layers on me. I don't want like I don't know. I just
where are you from? Where
I'm originally from Florida, so that's probably why. Like,
okay.
I mean,
I was gonna say
I'm
yeah.
used to like the hot weather. So, but now I'm in Maryland. But like, yeah, I 100% hate the fucking winter. I hate cold weather. I just, and I actually, so I've never used an anxiety blanket. I did get, have you ever heard of a sad lamp, light?
Oh
So
yeah, like the
yeah, so
yeah,
SAD is an acronym for seasonal something depression. I don't know what the A is
mental
there, but
affective disorder. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. My bad. You know, and I don't. But yeah, I got one. I got it off of Amazon for like $40, and because like a year or two ago, I can't remember, but like yeah, it was winter. I was getting really depressed, and just every day just feeling kind of down. And like part of that is like not maybe going out and getting enough sunlight. I work from home. I don't like, and I wasn't like super physically active. And like as I was saying at the top of the podcast, was like I weighed like 300 plus pounds more than that, but like so. I was bigger and then like I just was not physically active. I was really focused on you know work and like programming and things like that. Just like I was like focused on my computer because like I was thinking like this is how I'm going to be successful in my career. But then like neglecting maybe the mental like my own mental health and not thinking about that. Not thinking about like I haven't socialized with anybody in like a year. I haven't outside of my wife, it's like, she's the person I spend most of my time with, but like outside of that, yeah, I just like other than like rap battles and stuff, not really doing a whole lot, not like, really walking much, not getting out or whatever. But yeah, I got like this lamp. It's literally just a light. It looks like an iPad. It's in my closet, but I'm not gonna bother to get it. But like yeah, I don't know if it helps or not. Allegedly, like you're supposed to just turn it on and like you don't actually have to go outside. The idea is that like because the reason why I got it was because like I'm not too lazy to walk, but like if it's cold outside, I don't want to go out. If it's like 30 degrees or less, I just hate cold weather. But yeah, you just literally like turn on the lamp and you're supposed to just like sit there and have that shit like shining down on you, and it just feels like such a loser. Like you got like a little like one of those what's the Tyco, like they make like a little toy and it doesn't actually do anything, but you got to imagine like
Yeah.
that's how I feel. It's my own little like insecurities and shit.
Yeah.
But like,
But no, that's kind of like, and that's why I try so hard to be really like open, because I feel like, along all those same lines, it's like, oh, it's owning your truth. It's like when you put shit out there, no one can expose you. You know what I mean? Like you're just comfortable with, shit is what it is. Like some people might, look at that and judge or feel a certain way. But like when you really think about it, what the fuck does it matter if you have a, light that helps with your neurotransmitters? Like that's fucking whatever
right,
you
right.
have to do
Well, yeah, I
to,
mean, like, so
to
that's how
cope
I
with
look
this
at
world.
it.
Like do it, it's not
Yeah.
harming anybody.
No, I know. It's like that's the thing is right. I've been in so many different communities, and here's the thing: is like every community has a different perspective, and then like I get all of the different perspectives, but I would be remiss to say that I don't like want to fit into all of the communities, right? Like I like especially like rap, like rap, you get a lot of like, rap battling, especially, not just like music, but like rap battling, which is a very like, competitive and very machismo type of thing to some people. But like the culture there is like, there's a lot of people that might be like, oh, you got a lamp, to make, because
Yeah.
you're too sad. Like what a bitch, like that type of shit. And like, I always like, man, I don't want that judgment. I don't want that like, somebody looking at me like I'm a lesser person because of that. But then I'm also like an academic, right? Like I literally like this is the weird like kind of like how far apart all the communities like I've grown up in so many different environments. Like I've lived in like a 2 million home in the suburbs, and I've lived in a trailer. I've been homeless. I've been to all these like different things and seen a lot of people from different backgrounds. And so I just have an influx of all these different like voices. It's really like a YouTube comment section in my head where like, it's like anything I do or like, I'm seeing like all the ways that somebody would like criticize me and like, be judgmental of that in some way. And man, it's a lot to deal with sometimes, but I forgot where I was going with this. What was the original like train of thought? I forgot what led to this point.
Just talking about like the lamp and just in general, like being part of all these different communities,
Yeah.
like different judgment might come from. Like, yeah, I get that. Um,
But it's like,
yeah,
oh yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just remember where I was picking up off. But like, yeah, so I was gonna say though, like if I look at it from like academics though, right? Like, cause I also look at like podcasts and stuff from like these are people who are scientists and neurologists and it's like these are people that like literally they actually care about like what is the correct like like what's the most efficient way to do things, right? Like how do you like improve your life? How do you do X, Y, and Z? And they all come to the conclusion after doing hundreds and thousands of studies, like this is like just all types of different, like it's not just exclusive to neuroscience or anything like that, but in general, like it's like everybody knows like, okay, well, if you want to be healthy, you got to go like exercise and eat right. Like that's no you can have all the different fad diets and fad workouts and et cetera, but all of the studies universally, ubiquitously say like, you just need to eat well and you need to like be active. That's it. And like it's like that also with brain science and stuff like that. So it's like why like if there's a conclusion among the scientific community that this is going to be better for you, then they don't have that level of judgment that the rap battling community has, or not just rap battling, but like, in general, it's the same thing. It's really like any type of, like man's man type of perspective, really. Like, if you like look at yourself as a tough guy, you're not going to, but there's a good chance that you might have that perspective. But yeah, so I just like, but yeah, I also just kind of have to come to some eventual conclusion where I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna do what's right for me, and what's going to like make me as successful as I can be in my life, which is like, there's also, there's like I have my own existential like why. I don't know why, I don't really like the weird thing, right? Like, so going back on, we're kind of like jumping around, but all this is like intertwined. But going back onto like the topic of like religion and spirituality, it's just like no matter what, whatever you think your purpose is, on this earth, and maybe you might think differently if you're like super religious and you don't believe that like the universe is like an infinite thing, and that like, time is like, like that humans have been here for billions, not humans, the earth has been here for billions of years, and then humans have only been here for like a fraction of that time. But like, but the reality is that like no matter what you do, you could do everything right, and your existence will still has a maximum shelf life, right? Like, you could be Isaac Newton. Nobody's going to remember who Isaac Newton was maybe a million years from now, right? The universe is going to outlive all of us, and like these individuals who did incredibly, unthinkable, like, almost like superhuman things in the time that they existed. By the time that like once you get enough time in the future, nobody cares. It literally has no purpose other than, to be like one domino in the set of like millions of dominoes. But nobody actually cares about one domino once you start looking at a big enough scale of like, billions, right? And that is kind of how I look at the universe. No matter what I do, no matter how hard I try, anything I do is going to really just be kind of like, pointless. But, I mean, at the same time, I also have to kind of rectify, like, I accept that, like, I want to be successful to some degree. I accept that I want to do something with my life, because it is kind of like whatever reason we're here, whether that be God or whether that be like, something else. I know that like it's a unique thing, right? It's a weird experience to be a human, to be alive on Earth, to have like, some level of consciousness. You don't know how you got here, but there's obviously like something here that does not exist in most places in the universe. And so as long as I can, as long as I understand that, then I'm like, okay, well, let me at least try to see whatever, like, let me enjoy this life for what I can get from it. And it doesn't, there is some level of like, okay, yeah, I want to have fun and party, but like, I also want to do the right things, right? Like, I want to prove that, oh, I can go out there and I can be like the best rap battler I can be, or I can prove that I can go like get a 4.0 in college or whatever, it's just like, it's me trying to like, take this life and accept, like, even though there is no like, real maybe purpose to it, that I still want to try to live it to the best of my ability. But yeah, I don't know if I had a question. I've been talking for a bit, so I'll shut up here.
No, it's interesting to kind of bring it full circle again, going back to like Judaism and how, my wife's kind of brought that back into my life. And something that's really a common theme throughout a lot of Judaism is the idea of being able to hold two truths, even if they're kind of contradictory. Two things that don't seem like they both can be true, can be true. You can hold both. And in this case, to your point, it's like, yeah, I want to be successful. I want to figure out what my what my true passion is and make the world a better place, this and that. And, at the same time, it almost, you don't have to get too attached to it, or, I didn't become a famous rapper. Like, oh, well, like we're all going to end up in the same, it almost like takes the pressure off. It's like, all right, we're all dust eventually anyway. So, you don't have to, it's really you can want a lot in life, but it all at the same time it's just like not that deep. You can kind of want it but not need it.
Right.
It's almost like kind of a Buddhist approach where it's like
I mean, I think that's
attachment.
kind of where I'm landing. Like, even though I'm not Buddhist, like when I like learn more about Buddhism, I'm like, okay, like I can resonate with this a little bit more than like some other maybe belief systems.
Yeah, I feel that way too. It's exactly. It's like not getting too attached or to a desire or to anything material. Just accepting things for what they are. And again, I think you can have a balance. You can have motivations and goals, but you don't have to feel like a failure if you happen to fall short of that. I think it's you can kind of look at it from both perspectives. So it's I don't know. I'm not a philosopher. I don't claim to have all the answers, but I've definitely these are all things like I've turned the wheels on for many years, and feel like I got to a place that I'm at least kind of comfortable with, as far as how I look at life.
Right. Something I think is interesting, and this is what I heard somebody else say. So I don't quote me on this, but so my understanding from Buddhism or Buddha in general was that like he eventually like came to some level of enlightenment, right, where the idea is that you are going to be fully resolved within yourself. At the end of the day, happiness is not about like how much money you have. Happiness is not about what you can achieve outside of yourself, but rather like how you can look within yourself and like find I do a lot of introspection. That's like kind of the whole like part of why I did this whole podcast really. But like I also remember hearing that like Buddha got to a point of enlightenment where he himself was, he felt resolved. But the thing is that when you feel resolved, like 100% resolved, then that also kind of removes the motivation for you to do, productive things. So then he became like a little bit more lazy, I think. Now, again, don't quote me on that. That's just, a thing I heard. But that's just like a thing I think about. And I think it's interesting. Like I could definitely see that. Like if I were so because emotions at the end of the day, whether they be anxiety, whether they be anger, fear, whatever, they're all meant to serve a purpose of like fueling you as a human to doing some action. And so if you have anxiety, maybe you can use that, and your anxiety will make you a better rapper because your anxiety is telling you you have to do this really well, or else there might be some negative consequence. So what do? You do it really well because that level of emotion is so strong. And likewise, fear, like don't put your hand, in the electrical socket because you're afraid that like it might shock you or something. And that's probably a good thing for most people that they don't do it. So it's like emotions uh, are meant to kind of like push you in a certain direction and maybe make you feel uncomfortable. But it's like if you're fully resolved and you can just accept, oh, these are all of my emotions, but I don't necessarily have to act on them. I don't have to actually do anything. You can definitely get to a point of like maybe complacency or something where you just
Yeah, absolutely. And I think about that too, because like that was something I sort of struggled with when I like first when I kind of went down my first like rabbit hole of like what is all this, because I got to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm like 25, 26. I'm I'm married, I finished school, I have a job, like I've done all the things everyone says you're supposed to do.
right.
Is this it? Like, okay, is this
Yeah.
cool? Like now what? So it's sort of like you but then it's like, what am I going to do? Like, I'm not going to sit in my room and, meditate for 18 hours a day. You still have motivations to go out and do things. And so, you just can, again, I think it's about having that balance of, following those passions and those motivations, but understanding that, that's not really what makes you whole, or, it's like your achievements aren't what makes you, is what's going to, bring you peace in yourself. It's like that's why there's billionaires that are miserable, and people who don't have very much, that it's probably harder in this day and age, but there definitely are people who are struggling but still finding the joy in life. So
Right.
your achievements and your money and whatever is just a that's a small piece of the equation.
Right. Um, Earlier you had mentioned, I guess maybe having OCD. or just, maybe yeah, it's all a spectrum. And I think that's probably true of almost everything in life, not just, mental health, but like in general. But like you were mentioning that like, maybe wanting to have control of, big life changes and things like that. So, and then you also mentioned getting married. So was that a challenge for you at all? Was that at all like, um like how did your like, did were you like how did your wedding planning go? Was it like, a joint thing? Was it mostly like your wife? Was it mostly you? Everybody has their own, I think,
Yeah.
ideals of what like people have a vision sometimes when it's like, what do you want to do when you get married, or like what is it going to look like, and you have to come to these compromises. You have to have that argument with you, like, oh, who's going to be invited, who's not going to be invited, oh, these people are going to get drunk and make shit weird, like
Yeah,
that type
it's
shit.
interesting. Mine, I'd say with me, it's more like internalized. Like it's more of it's less about control maybe and more about perfectionism. Like it's for me, like it's like just it is as an example in like my day to day, if I'm at work and I like have, an hour where I'm like maybe really unproductive or not getting things done, I'm like, oh, this whole day was a fail. It's like I'm very like everything or nothing. And
Yeah,
I think that's, that again, I think there's certainly benefits to that too, but perfectionism is a prison, and nothing you ever do is going to feel good enough. That
right,
probably is also why I'm so meticulous when I'm writing, and so I kind of benefit from it in that way. That's where the
right. It's a
overthink.
gift and a curse.
Yeah, exactly. Um, where was I going with this? Oh, so the wedding, but like for things like that, I'm really actually at like the opposite end of the spectrum. I'm not very particular about like I think it's very rare where I'll get caught up in like, small details of like something else that I aren't important to me. Like so my wife, was blessed with this skill, like a hobby of hers out, just in life is she loves, and it goes along with this like thing I talked about earlier with Shabbat on the Friday night. She loves hosting. She loves, hosting dinners, hosting parties, when her friends hit milestones, things like that. So she is amazing at that type of shit. So she had no problem kind of running with it. And
Right,
my brain just doesn't, whether it's, a wedding or any kind of event, there's certain things that people latch onto or can focus on that my brain just doesn't work that way. I can't like I look at like the place I live, and some people might, in their brain they have this vision like, oh, it'd look really cool if you like, knocked this wall down or moved this thing over here. I don't, my brain doesn't work that way. I see things for kind of what they are. I'm like, okay, this is good how it is. Like for the
right,
wedding, it's like, I don't care, what color the napkins are, or,
right.
it's like, I don't get, I'm very like big picture, I guess,
Right.
is how, with things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I could be like that sometimes. It really depends. I think maybe we just bought our house, and so for the first time, I'm a little bit more like, okay, well, this is like what like I want to see done differently, and because I'm looking at more like this is an investment, and like we're like like long term like project and stuff like that. So that might be one area where like I'm a little bit more like, okay, like these are things I want done. I mean, at the end of the day, like my wife and I, like we just kind of talk about like, I'm pretty easygoing on most things. I mean, but like in terms of like our wedding, like she like I not just our wedding, but like most things in my life, like I'm also like you. I'm a big picture person. I don't really get too caught up on like the small details. In terms of like getting married, I didn't really like have a vision in my mind of like what my wedding would ever look like. My wife ended up like putting in like she sent like an email. It's like to it's a place called Am Pizza, but it was like a small pizza shop or something like that in Baltimore. And so they were doing like a promotion where they were like doing like they'll put together like a ceremony for you. So it was like literally 1 hour. We go in. They had like some music and stuff, and like everything that like they provided. They had flowers and like a setup and all that. It looked nice, but it was just 1 hour. We had our ceremony. Then we ended up getting a B&B after, just to have like kind of a reception. And then, at the end of the day, after everything, like, was all said and done, we probably spent like $2,000 on everything, including like, the tuxedo, the rings, all that, including the B&B, including the wedding. And then we got like 1,000, from like guests and stuff. So at the end of the day, like cost $1,000. I'm like, I take that as a win. And also like, I feel like I was happy with the wedding. My wife was happy with the wedding. So it's like, why, like we didn't necessarily want to spend more money than, we needed to. But yeah, it's like in terms of that, like in that particular example, yeah, I didn't really have any strong opinions. But in terms of like the house, now I'm like more like, oh yeah, we gotta do, things. I mean, and at the end of the day, like my wife and I are just like a unit, so we're just gonna talk about like what we compromise on, and like, oh, I like that, you like that, and like, oh, what about these, and so forth until we kind of come to an agreement. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of went on a tangent, I think maybe.
Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, that's, I'm sure when when and if I actually, uh, I think maybe if we end up having kids, then then I might get real, like
Yeah.
the OCD might come out. But yeah, I don't know.
All
That's,
right, all right. Let's say you have kids. You having Christmas?
I, I would just, not because I'm opposed to it, but just I would feel like a fraud. You know what I mean? Like just it's fully Jewish kid.
I
Like,
really don't think you. See, this is my opinion, but I'm also just like, I'm not. I have no dog in the fight, really, because I mean, I was Catholic or whatever, but like I don't really associate at all with, like, I have no cultural ties to Christianity. I have zero interest in Christianity, period. I don't call myself a Christian. Ironically, my middle name is Christian, but I don't really associate myself with it. But at the same time, Christmas is fucking awesome. And I'm not gonna not get into that.
we won't like have a tree and like do the whole, Christmas morning whole thing, but
Right.
like we'll go downtown and see the big tree in the middle of the city, and like
Right.
there's this Christmas market in the downtown Chicago that I always love. It's like we'll do that kind of shit. We won't like shun it, you know what I mean? But we won't do like the whole routine either. Like it's you can't avoid it fully, no, so it's like. And yeah, it is like I'm much more of a fall and winter person than a spring and summer. Like, so that's kind of like my happiest time of year anyway. So yeah, I lean into that shit for sure.
Are you like a snow skiing guy? I feel like I can picture you on like on some skis and
I love it. I haven't gone in a very long time. It's a fucking expensive hobby to have, and it's up to like Wisconsin or Michigan. There's like some skiing, but the real skiing is either out on like in the Northeast or like out in the Rocky Mountains. So it's like it's a big undertaking of a trip. So I'd like to do that at some point, but yeah, it's been a while. But no, yeah, it's more football season. I do some part-time work for a college football team. So I'm traveling every weekend in the fall, and then, hockey, and then just kind of being out in the snow, just, all the like the holidays, even if you don't observe any of the holidays, still, hopefully people at least get maybe some time off to relax, reset a bit, see your loved ones. Like I kind of lean into the magic of that time of year, not, even for, you know, Christmas reasons, but just, I don't know. It's just kind of a sacred time to me.
right. All right, so going into a completely different direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I heard like I just find like bits and pieces. I'm like, okay, maybe I can ask about this thing. I think you mentioned somewhere in a podcast that comedy was part of your life, or just like, so did you like when you said that, were you talking about like stand up or just comedy in general? I was listening to like I guess you're into like Parks and Rec. I get that. Like,
Oh, yeah.
do you listen to
Oh,
stand up though?
yeah, that was, oh yeah, I did. My sister had a podcast for a little bit. I remember talking about that. Yeah. I mean, I've never tried stand up, and I'm not as into it as I used to be. I did take some improv classes here and there. I don't know. I like performing. I like entertaining
Right.
people. I think comedy was like the first form of, entertainment that really, I don't know, resonated with me. I just, I don't know. I love humor. I love making people laugh. And obviously, I think that is reflected in how I battle, obviously. But yeah, I don't know. It's something I've always gravitated towards. I think actually that's you know in a way it's in a roundabout way how I got into battle rap because when I started listening to hip hop when I was 10, 11 years old, this is like the early 2000s. So what really kind of got me into the culture was I was obsessed with diss tracks. I love, that's when like Jay-Z and Nas was happening. That was when 50 Cent and Ja Rule were going back and forth. It's when Eminem was like crushing Benzino in the Source magazine. So
Right.
I just loved that medium. I thought it was so cool. These guys are like going to war through songs. It was strategic, it was competitive. There was usually humor incorporated into that. Because I look at it like I was an 11-year-old kid growing up in the suburbs, listening to The Blueprint by Jay-Z. I don't know what he's talking about when he says, I had to hustle my back to the wall, ashy. Like that's all going over my head. Like
Right.
so I'm listening to all this music that I love, but I don't really relate to. But like anybody can relate to that's a one hot album every 10-year average.
Right.
You moved the hot line. I mean, everyone can understand roasting somebody else. I think
Right.
that's why like the general public, even if they don't listen to rap, they were so infatuated with Drake and Kendrick. That's why like there's so many people in battle rap that aren't even that into hip hop because even if you can't relate to the culture at all, everyone understands, clowning on somebody, and that's something anybody can be entertained by. So
Yeah.
it's just kind of an interesting thing, but that's a big part of why I even became interested in the idea of battle rapping.
Yeah, I mean, I think you brought up an interesting point, and like it's kind of this weird paradox to me because I feel like it's like there seems to be a demand, maybe not for rap battling, but like that, like the diss tracks and like that competitiveness in a mainstream space, right? Obviously, like what you had a great example, like the Drake and Kendrick beef, like that was so big and it like it was such a big beef that like it came on the Super Bowl and like all those people did the A minor line and that's insane, right? Like and even like when you go back to like when you look at like Ether and Takeover and things like that, it's like there's clearly a market, right? Like there's clearly people that are buying this crap. And I'm not saying crap like derogatory, obviously I love this
Yeah.
shit. But like I don't understand why it's so hard to sell it though, right? Like why like cuz I feel like so that we're talking almost about two different things. One is diss tracks, and then the other is going to be rap battling. There are some overlaps. They are similar, but they are also very different. And so I just like I'm very interested in that topic. Like, how does rap
Well,
battling become bigger than what it, like how does it reach a mainstream audience?
see,
How do
that's
the people at the Super Bowl end up watching a rap battle? You know?
but that's the thing, and I've had this debate with people because I don't think it. People talk about how can we get battle rap mainstream? How can we market it to the masses? I think that's a mistake. I think that's when it gets watered down because you know what's the form of battle rap right now that the most people are familiar with and understand? It's like Wild and
Hey,
Out. You know what I
oh,
mean?
oh yeah, yeah. Wow.
It's the most. Sorry.
I was gonna say 8 Mile, but yeah, I mean, Wild 'N Out is like the closest thing to what we do in terms of like a mainstream.
Right. And what they're doing, all respect to those guys, it's the most simplified,
Yeah,
dumbed down, version of it. And that's what happens with all, every kind of art form and entertainment. If you want to appeal to the most people, you kind of have to water it down. And so I think that's a mistake because when, that's, and to be, for the Drake and Kendrick example, like Not Like Us was a huge hit that was and I love it but it is it's very simplified compared to everything else
right.
Kendrick
Well, like
does.
you know, and I know, and probably everybody in the battle rap community knows that the A minor thing like that's been around
Exactly.
over a decade, like longer than they've been beefing for sure. But it was the first time it was ever brought into like a main like it's just like these types of like there are certain word plays and stuff that like we've been doing it so long that everything gets said like hundreds of times, and then somebody else might say it on a different platform and then like they get credit for it. But like, and I'm not trying to, throw shade or whatever, but like, yeah, I understand what you're saying. That it's not like maybe the most complex or like outside of the box original, you know, punchlines maybe.
Yeah, and so it's just like, can battle rap, does it need to expand, or can we lean into the fact that it's this niche, kind of insular, movement that's been, still has a, there's plenty of diehard battle rap fans like that, we don't, do we, but then, what do I know about I don't know much about the business side of this shit, but it just seems to me like, do we need, to be on TV and at award shows? Like, do we really need all that? Like, or I understand, obviously, everyone wants to make more money. I'd love to, make more money battle rapping, but
Right.
like, is that really what's best for the art
The
form? I
culture. Yeah, yeah.
mean, you've seen how history treats, I mean, look at hip hop culture itself. It's, did it trade, the authenticity and the originality to, kind of become this global thing that everyone can, relate to? Was that the best thing for it? I don't know. Everyone's going to have their own opinion on it.
Yeah, I mean, people will have their own opinion on it. I think, is it the best thing? No. I do, I do feel like Grind Time almost felt like it had a happy medium, right? There was a brief period of time where like, everything they came out with would do like 10, 20,000 views, like every battle they would come out with. They did, they kind of suffered from oversaturation maybe, and they were doing too much. And then, there's a lot of things that, but I would say that, the grind time style was very accessible probably relative to other things in battle rap, where you don't necessarily have to know like how many different, entendres there are for a gun in order to understand the material. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've talked about it before, and it's just like, I also have that debate too, and like kind of like that internal like conflict, because I do want to see rap battling, reach what the highest form of what it can be, artistically, and be as, cerebral and, impactful as it can be. But at the same time, I also don't want that to only be seen by five people. You know what I mean? Like, and so and I know it's like five people is a hyperbole, but like, it does feel like, rap battling as a community is even smaller than it was maybe. I don't know. Like maybe it's not. Maybe like, cause I also see like great signs that like it's evolving and getting into a better position. And part of it was the pandemic, I think, did like kind of bring it down, but I think we're back up on an upswing, hopefully.
Well, and people got to understand. I think it gets overlooked a lot because people always say, "Oh, YouTube views are so down, and people aren't watching anymore." But we also have to remember that, like, when we started getting involved in it, 2,000 leagues out there, and there wasn't, multiple cards happening every weekend, and a million battles getting uploaded every day, and
Right.
not to mention just in general the way people consume media has changed. With TikTok,
TikTok.
people just don't have the attention. Burris is the most famous battle rapper in the world right now because he's brilliant at putting these clips together and that resonate with people. So it's kind of in the hands of the artist now more than it is like you could be on. It's not how it used to be. Like you could be on URL and King of the Dot and still be unknown. It's not I feel like it's not artists to promote it and put something out there that people want to watch. So it's shifted, but it's the market's definitely still there. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you were bringing, you brought up the point about TikTok, and like that is, yeah, I do agree that to some degree, it's not only the artist, but it's also up to the leagues to be able to adapt to like the technology changes, and it's not just something that's exclusive to rap battling. For example, a great example, when you look at the internet, when the internet first came out, like the internet did a lot of damage to Hollywood. It did a lot of damage to video games. It did a lot of damage to pretty much music, like anything where you could download it online. I was one of those people. I don't know if you were one of those people, but we're a similar age. And, like I was able to get all that stuff on like LimeWire, like Kaza, and like other, torrent sites and stuff. And So they all of those companies, all of these people had to figure out, okay, well, now people can just get our movie for free. They're not going to buy it from a DVD store anymore. How do we adjust to this? And then what you see is, capitalism as a whole kind of like adjusting to technology. And that's why now when you look at Netflix, right? Netflix didn't even have ads at one point. Now Netflix has ads and Hulu, and they keep jacking up their prices. But that is capitalism catching up because it fell behind of the technology changes. And if we as rap battlers can't catch up to and keep in front of the trend in terms of technology changes, then yeah, rap battling will 100% become obsolete because we're not putting ourselves where people are looking, right? If people are looking at TikTok, and especially I think the next generation hopefully of rap battlers would be looking on TikTok probably, or some short form media like that. We just need to be able to kind of adapt and put ourselves to position ourselves to benefit from the changes of technology. Like when you look at video games were the one subset of people that were affected negatively by the internet. Yet somehow they actually make more profit now than they did before because people in video games were smart enough to be like, okay, well, you can have the video game. Some of them are like, you can have the video game for free. You can have a free video game, but every single time you want to change your haircut, it's going to cost like 10 cents. Every time you want to like put on an outfit, every time you want to like, if you want to improve your jump shot in NBA 2K, just throw a couple dollars at it and you'll be better and you'll be able to compete with other people. And video games were actually able to take, evolving technology from the internet and actually make it work to their advantage. And as if you're a rap battling league, if you're like King of the Dot, if you're organic, if you're Smack, like you gotta look at that, and say, how do I evolve and change my product so that it's properly taking advantage of all of the new things that are happening. When AI comes out, how is rap battling going to take advantage of AI? I don't think anybody is asking themselves that question. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I mean, Lex is probably crazy enough to do that, but like, other than like, I don't think anybody else in the rap battling community is asking themselves that question. But they should be, right? Like, if they were really business people, like, I mean, you're in marketing, right? Like, is that not a way that people in billion-dollar companies tend to approach these types of these innovations?
No, yeah, because you're not just competing. If you're King of the Dot or if you're URL or iBattle or whatever, you're not competing with the other leagues. You're competing with everything else in the fucking world that people are scrolling
Right.
through on the phone. You know what I
It's
mean?
like, why do I want to watch XQZ battle somebody when I could watch a big titty goth girl
Exactly.
on TikTok, right? Like,
There's only so much time in the day,
you don't have big titties. You're not even goth. What are we doing here?
yeah, I need to put my OnlyFans back up, and I'll start making some real money here. But yeah, that's it though. Like, there's only so much time in the fucking day, you know. I I hate to say it, but it's the truth. Like, I don't remember the last time I've watched a whole 30, 40 minutes of a full battle. Like,
Yeah.
it's so you just gotta. I don't know. There's always going to be the diehard fans. I mean, when I go to an event, I love it. Like, I'm front row. I'm gassing everybody. Like, I just went to this event in Chicago a week or two ago. I had a fucking blast. But that's different. So those live experiences are still incredibly valuable. But yeah, it's pretty rare, I think, for someone's gonna watch every YouTube release these days. So yeah, you gotta adapt. But
Yeah, I mean, like, so, I mean, to some degree, the rap battling scene has, like, so I'm gonna go on this tangent. It is what it is. I like, there's a part of me that's always like, don't do rap stuff, but we're gonna do rap stuff. So, like, so you and I both came up in a different era, right? We came up on like rap forums and stuff, right? Like, you were on rap music at one point, right? Were you on any other forums like that, or?
no, not really. I mean, I didn't. Rap music became RMVA or whatever.
Oh,
So
yeah, yeah, RMBVA.
RMBVA. But yeah, that, and then you know what? I used to use that fucking that grind time like Grind Time had like a chat or something or like a forum. So
Okay. I didn't know
that
that.
might be before your time, but yeah, that was about it really. Like I never did like the online battles or the like that type of shit. But yeah, I was definitely on the forums like all through like high school and college.
Right, right. So yeah, I mean, I used to be a text battler. Like that's like where I started. I was like 12 or 13. I was probably a 13. But so how I found it originally is like I was in school. I had, I hung out with a bunch of kids who would always be like freestyling at the in the lunchroom. And so like one of them, like we were like during lunch they were like on the library computer and I saw them like on like a rap forum, so I just like went to go check out what that was about, and then like I was like, oh, these people are doing like rap battles, and then that was it, right? Like I just kept going. I checked out, that forum went down because they would like a lot of those forums like stayed up for like a couple months and then disappeared forever. But yeah, rap music was actually like the bigger one of all of the like forums that the under like somewhat underground back in the early 2000s, rap battling fans, if you wanted to do anything like online rap battling associated, that was probably where you would be. And this is before like there was a bigger form. This was before there was a bigger audience for rap battling. And so yeah, I mean, I used to. Were you like into the GRBs and stuff like that?
No, I didn't learn about that till a lot later on, and then I
Ah,
kind of retroactively went back and like I learned that Nestle used to smoke everybody in that shit and
yeah, him and Warbucks. There was a guy named
Starbucks. Yeah, yeah.
Point Game. There was a guy named DZK. Lots
He kind
of
of heard it too. Yeah.
Yeah, all of those people were like revered by like, me and like, a couple hundred other like, there was a lot of nerds, that obviously it's like, the online rap battling forum, but like, but yeah, like, I was definitely into that shit. Like I used to walk around with a CD player. I would burn like all of these like, oh man, you would have loved it because I know you're like into like rap diss tracks. Like that's like the thing you like most in hip hop. And like, man, I used to just literally walk around and play like, round one, round two from like, Nestle, or round two, like Nestle dissing Warbucks and Warbucks dissing Nestle, and like all of that, like it was so good too. Like the content, like even today, by today's standards, I would say that like a lot of those bars were really fucking good. I mean, like, yeah, Warbucks is really like, the one that like I was most like inspired by. He was the one that like the reason I'm a puncher today is probably because of Warbucks, right? Like because he was the first person that I ever like really noticed, like as I was listening to him, that he would like be throwing back to back punches and then also have the same rhyme. So it's like when you have like a punch and then another punch and they both rhyme with each other, and then he would do it like for like 8 lines or something like that, or 10, and it was absolutely ridiculous to me because I had never heard anything like that. Especially once once you like know enough about the craft to be like, oh, that's like this type of rhyme scheme, and that's like this bar, and like these things rhyme with each other. And yeah, so I think, man, I'm gonna take a shot. I'm gonna find a really good fucking Warbucks track, and I'm gonna send you that shit, and you're gonna listen to that. I hope.
Yeah,
I hope.
'cause I wasn't into that when I was first like getting into like underground rap and battle rap. But what I was obsessed with was the fucking like that indie scene of like what like Weathermen, like Copyright and
Right.
Cage and like that, and that was very punchline heavy too. So kind of in the same vein, like
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, yeah. This was so like you got to put this in perspective. Like I was a teenager at the time, so this was like really I didn't have access. Like I heard all that music, right? Because like. But the first thing that I had access to was like the online forums, and then when I was on the online forums, everybody was like, "Oh, you got to check out that rapper. You got to check out that rapper." I remember like the earlier days of the forums, they would actually like they had like avatars, right? So we would all have avatars, but that was like when they would have all these like they would have pictures of all these like underground rappers. I'm trying to remember who. I can't remember who they had off the top, but they would have like Idea, they would have Copyright, they would have like I'm drawing a blank. I know they had like like Onyx isn't exactly underground, but like but it's like they yeah, yeah.
Francis.
Yeah, exactly. They basically just had like the avatars of these rappers, and then like I had to be like, okay, well, who are all these people, right? Like these were
Yeah,
like
yeah.
so like, and then also, you start talking to people, and like you have forums, and people would be like, oh, this new track from Royce the 5'9" came out, and then like, and again, like, not underground, but like, it's just like there's different levels of, how mainstream you are versus how underground you are. But like either way, this was the source where I was able to like learn about a lot of these different, artists and their music and everything. Because yeah, I remember like, yeah, copyright. Funny enough, is he's pretty like. Are you friends with Copyright? He seems like a really approachable guy. He's very into the battle rap scene from what I could tell.
Yeah, we've had a few interactions. He actually he battled on No Coast Chicago. He battled Reverse Live. This was probably like 10 years ago or something. So I got to kick it with him then, which was like he is genuinely one of my favorite rappers of all time. Like he introduced me to punchlines. Like I'm a huge
Yeah,
fan. So
I remember listening to the High Exalted a lot,
yeah,
and like,
it was like wow. So it was wild to like meet him and see him battle and we like yeah, he's like shown love on a couple of my joints. So like yeah, I wouldn't call him like it's not like we talk or anything, like we're not like friends, but just having a kind of that rapport with someone who I like hold in such high regard. That was definitely a cool experience. So yeah.
yeah.
And I've been fortunate enough to have you know quite a few of those moments over the years. So it's yeah, that's why I say it's been a pretty crazy journey.
So I mean, like, I know. So what was like the actual like maybe first like rap song you heard? What like I'm
Hmm.
still because like I've heard the question like how did you get into rap music? And then the answer is tends to be like, oh, I've been listening to it since I was like 10, 11. I was on rap forums and that type of thing. But like I don't know. I'm looking for the moment. Like I know I can tell you like for me there was, I mean, at least one moment. The very first time I ever actually listened to I wouldn't say ever listened to hip hop, but like trying to it might have been the first song that just like I remember like really resonated with me, and I was like, oh, this is like the shit. And like so I had a friend of mine who he was from New York, and he had Jay-Z. It was the Can I Get a and like he was just like playing that in like earbud headphones, and he like let me listen to it. And like that was like I remember that moment just because also it was like it was like a weird moment for me because like my ears are different, so I was like it felt like a little bit more normal, like it was a normal experience that most people would have, and that made me feel like a little less different than like him, right? But so like I moved. Yeah, like that was the first song that I specifically remember. I was like, this is awesome. Then I did eventually like, like when you're white, Eminem, right? Like he came out, he was very big at that time, and like that gave me the ability to be like, okay, like there are white people that do this too, right? So then like that gives you like some like representation, and then you're like, okay, I could try this out, and it wouldn't be like unheard of. I'm trying to remember. Like I remember in terms of rap battling, because yeah, I'm just like trying to put the picture together. The very first time I ever heard rap music, that was probably when I was like 9, 10 or so, and then like when I was in middle school, which was like closer to like 11, 12, that's when I was listening to rap music a lot at that time, but it was really I started writing poetry for a girl in my school, and then like some of my friends found out about it, and they were just like, "Oh, you should freestyle with us. You already write these poems. It's the same thing. Just like come up with it. You improvise it, right?" And so then I did that. The very first so I was on online rap forums for a while. I was aware of grind time. I didn't actually do any live battling. I should have done it earlier. I don't know. I wasn't really like in the right headspace to maybe battle at that age, but like I wish I had gotten into the scene earlier than I did. I was aware of it the whole time because like like I met a guy named Hemisphere who was
Yeah,
he was on a rap forum. He was in a group with like Nestle and like Sunny Bamboo and shit. Yeah, he was my mentor. Like as a like one of my mentors as a rapper. And so he was like he was good friends with Direct, and Direct created Grind Time. So I was very, and he was also in the WRCs. So that like I obviously was plugged into that. And then eventually like I ended up moving to Maryland, and then like I found like a league, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna do this. And then that's when but like the very first time like I really started to see like live battling in its current form was like Marv One and Quest versus I don't even remember oh, you know what? It might have been that one. Did you ever see the one where there was like 2v1? They're at like the park, and then the whole time Marv is sitting.
Yeah,
Marv
I know what you're talking about.
Marv is hilarious because
That's
he's
what they
like,
keep saying, like I'm gonna beat your
yeah,
ass.
yeah.
Yeah,
And so like Marv One, who's like this like big guy, he's like, you know, kind of heavy, but he's just sitting on the he's sitting on the bench. Like they're doing a rap battle, like so already like there's kind of like a an understanding among everybody that we're gonna be standing and we're gonna be like rapping at each other. Marv One's like, fuck that. I'm just gonna sit down on this bench over here. And I'm just gonna rap my whole thing. And then his partner, Quest, like it was a 2v1 because I guess maybe the other guy's partner wasn't there. I don't know. But like but yeah, like the whole time, like Marv One was just like, and I'm just gonna remind you that I beat your ass, and then
yeah.
over and over and over again. It was hilarious, and I was just like, this is fucking great. And like I watched like you know those like they were by far my favorite team in the WRCs. Marv is continues to be like one of my top inspirations and one of my favorite battlers. But yeah, that's kind of how I got into it more or less. But I still like I haven't quite pieced all the like pieces for you yet.
Yeah, so first of all, I used to show all my friends those old Marvin Quest battles because you can't like there's certain battles that you can show someone who doesn't watch and they'll still
Yeah, they'll
be
get it.
right. Like Marv is like the epitome of that. That's a classic. But yeah, for me, like I until I was like 10 or 11, I wouldn't I just I don't I wouldn't say I was just a big music person in general. Like I just would kind of listen to, I had a radio in my room and I would just, before bed, I would put on just like the top 40 station. So, it would play some rap, some, Blink 182 and some Britney
Right.
Spears. And, it was a little of everything. And I just kind of noticed over time, like the hip hop seemed to, for whatever reason, I just liked it more than everything else.
Right.
And it was, if I had to give credit to one song, and it is cliche, but the real Slim Shady came out in I
Hmm.
think summer of 2000 or 2001, and it was everywhere. And it was, I think I just, because I was so young and so new to rap, I probably didn't even understand that the fact that he was white was even like unusual. Like so I don't think that had anything to do with it, but it's just like, this was when like I first started watching TRL as well, so I
Right.
saw the music video, and it was just so like goofy and comical and sarcastic. I'm like and like so fucking catchy at the same time. That beat is amazing. So that stuck with me. And then who else was big at the time? Like Jay-Z, DMX, Luda, like Nelly. Everything that was on the radio then, it just stuck with me, and went kind of down the rabbit hole from there. And then my introduction to like actual battle rap, like doing rap battles, it might have been 8 Mile or it might have been Jin on 106 in Park. I don't know
Yeah.
which happened first,
I
but
will. I will say that I did watch the Gin battles and like Freestyle Friday long before I ever watched like the WRCs. But yeah, it was so different, obviously,
for
because it
sure.
was the thing is that like 106 in Park, like Freestyle Friday was literally like kind of a sideshow for the thing that was everybody
Yeah.
tuned into. They only did it one day, and they only like the battles were like what 30-second rounds or something like that, very short.
And it's in that same vein of kind of watered down where you have to say really simple
Well,
punchlines.
it was
Like,
freestyle, right? Or allegedly.
yeah, if somewhat. But no, as far as like more of like the format we see now, I can tell you exactly how I came across that too, because there was I don't remember exactly how this worked, but I guess on whatever like TV provider I had in my house, there was like this like kind of on demand menu of like free content. And I remember just kind of scrolling through it, and there were they were divided into genres. So there was like a hip hop section, and it was mostly like music videos. But then there was this one thing just it didn't even say the names on it. It just was labeled MC Battle. And so I watched it, and it was Iron Solomon versus this dude named Mike Assassin.
Okay.
Um, who was this British guy. I don't know if you he was this British guy, and he was horrible. But when it first started, it's like, I'm like, Iron Solomon's this like nerdy looking dude with, this nerdy looking Jewish dude with glasses. I'm like, oh, this guy, this nerd's about to get destroyed. And
Right.
it was like eye opening. It's like, oh my God, that was not at all what I thought was going to happen in this battle. And so that was like right around when YouTube first started becoming a thing. So went down the rabbit hole from there, watched every Iron Solomon battle, learned about, guys like Thesaurus and No Can Do and fucking Ilmac and, just kind of, Math, Sirius Jones. It just kind of went from there. So,
Yeah, No Can Do is another one that doesn't get enough props for like he was a fucking beast and
oh, yeah.
I still remember like he was like doing the WRCs and like he was battling against Thesaurus and Ilmac and like right like in the middle of a it was like a bar where like he was rapping at Thesaurus and then Thesaurus or he was like he's saying you're like 24 and he was like and then Thesaurus was like no I'm 25. He's like 25. I'll leave your eyes runny like eggs on the sunny side and it was just like oh my God he didn't even think he just like boom like as soon as the Thesaurus said it he just had the rebuttals right on deck.
Yeah, that shit's so incredible. Like, I, f- I don't miss freestyle battles because I think in general they were just so hit and miss, like, but that's because there's so few people in the world that are capable of doing it well. Like, it's such a fucking like small hand, it's such a hard skill to master. Like, you watch those old battles and so almost like all of them were one-sided because it'd be like someone who was decent, but then once you run into like a thesaurus or an idea or a no can do, it's like the skill gap is so huge. It's like they just show levels. So it's just there's way more people in the world that are capable of doing well in a written battle than there are people that could do it well in a freestyle battle.
No, I mean I agree with that. I do love the fact that and I feel like it doesn't I wish it was a thing that people like valued more.
For
And
sure.
maybe that's our fault as, battlers for or like the battle rap community for not maybe for not well, I think we do to some degree give like rebuttals, a good amount of gas or whatever. But we should incentivize people to at least know how to incorporate that stuff into battles. I don't want people to go to a battle and freestyle everything. But when somebody is capable of freestyling and they're really good at it, like that's always an amazing thing to watch. And I want to see more of that. There are some people who are just incredible at it. You got like people like A Ward. I know Archduke is another person that's like really, really fucking good at freestyling. But like, just like battlers that, can mix it up. You're able to go in, you're preparing correctly, you're writing, correctly. You're not half-assing it. Like you're really putting in your effort. But once you get there on the day, being able to come up with rebuttals on the spot or like freestyles on the spot, like that's just another tool in your belt to be able to do. Like earlier I was making the analogy between Brazilian jiu-jitsu and like boxing or whatever, but it's just like that's just another thing. Whether that you can call it whatever you want, you can call it wrestling or something different, but like either way it's just another like art form where if you're able to like master it and do it really well, then yeah, I think it should be incentivized within the battle rap community as a whole.
It's interesting. I don't know if the GRBs were like this at all, but that's what it was, right? That's what it's
Yeah.
called.
So I was going to go on a tangent with that, but the GRBs were actually something completely different. It was all audio battles online.
Right.
So they were pre-written though, but they were diss tracks really. That's all they were. And so they would have a tournament every single year, and like the winner would get like $1,000, which like back then, like a lot of us were like teenagers and maybe even like maybe early 20s of even, but like most of us were probably I was probably on the younger end of the demographic, but yeah, like $1,000 back, in early 2000 was like a lot of money to a lot of it. That was like rent to some people. And so, yeah, it's like it brought out like 64 or more people, depending. I don't know what the biggest one they had was, but some of them did have like at least 64 people or so, which is a pretty big tournament to have. And then like, you basically just do an audio track dissing your opponent. Your opponent does one, everybody votes on it, and then obviously everybody complains about who voted for who because that's how battle rap works. But yeah, I mean like it was just like it was a thing that I always wanted to like take part in because it seemed so cool to me. But like I didn't, admittedly, like I both care about rap battling a lot and I pay attention to it a lot, but I also don't like. I would tune into like I tune into the main things, right? Like I listen to Nestle, I listen to Warbucks, I listen to Point Game and DZK, but out of the 64 people that participated in that tournament, I've listened to like maybe like 5 or 10 of them, right? But yeah, I mean, most of it was just like pre-written audio battles.
Yeah, the reason I brought that up is, I just remember when I first started, like when No Coast was first a thing and grind, that was around the same time Grind Time started. It was, I mean, that was such a stigma, right? You could not come into a battle with writtens. That was,
Oh yeah,
you had to know how to freestyle. Like that was mandatory. Like there was
especially
like,
for like a live battle, like
yeah, like,
TRBs was a whole different thing, but
I was
nobody
gonna
really
say, so there, people
we didn't
weren't,
consider that like the real deal. Like Scribble Jam was the real deal. Like you're if you're like pursuing this, you're gonna go to Scribble Jam, and
yeah,
that was
because we used to
freestyle.
have like our first couple No Coast events, these like local, like older head rappers came to these events and would like have like I never was great at freestyling, but like I've done a couple tournaments, I've done some freestyle battles because you used to like you never wanted to be the guy who like, oh, I don't freestyle. Like that was not an option. You had to at least, somewhat be able to string 4 bars together.
Right.
But
I
it's
still
so
get that.
Oh, people still. Oh, yeah. When if a battle rap clip goes viral, you'll still see that in the comments. Why aren't they playing a beat? Why, why aren't they freestyling? So, 20 some years later, it still hasn't changed.
Yeah, I remember it was a little while ago. I was like at a party or something like that, and like somebody's like, that's the thing. Like if you tell somebody that you rap in general, sometimes like people just have their own like, what does it mean to be a rapper? People have their own like vision of what that is, and the reality is never really like what people think it is. I mean, there are all types of different rappers, right? Like most people, when they think of like, oh, I'm a rapper, they're not thinking of Carter Deems, but Carter Deems is technically a rapper, right? Like, and
Sure.
or not even just that. If you look at like hip hop music in general, I'm trying to think of who's a good example of somebody who doesn't seem like they would be a rapper, but they are like musically. I'm trying to think. Um,
Well, all the examples I'm thinking of are like people that aren't very good, like Machine Gun Kelly, one of mine. But
but I mean that's true though, right? Like I mean like whether you like him or not, right? You can't say he's not a rapper. I mean,
yeah,
whether you can say he's not a great one,
Like a Tyler the Creator, like that, like
right?
I like kind of that hipstery, like
Yeah.
alternative, vibe. So yeah, like shit like that.
But yeah, so I mean, like people have their vision of what it means to be a rapper, and yeah, I get. I'm just gonna go on a whole tangent. Like I just remember, like there's two different like scenarios that are just popping into my head now, whether they're relevant or not, who knows. But the first one being like I remember I was like at a party. This is like back when I was like 21 or something like that, and like I had recorded some music, and I was just like I was walking around with my CD and stuff, and like I was playing a song. And like I have a underground taste in music, so I listen to a lot of different things. If you listen to like a Lupe Fiasco song, for example, it's not going to sound at all like if you were to listen to like I don't know, just like a DMX song or something, right? Like they're very, very different beats, they're different tempos, they're different styles, they're different lyrics. All of the content is so completely different. And I think a lot of people, and especially people who mainly only look at like rap, in a casual sense, and they kind of get an idea. And I was from Florida, so like back then, the idea of like what a rapper is, they had like a oversized white T-shirt. It was a lot of Lil Jon and like all the like Paul Wall and all those people were like really big back then. And like I was making like music over like an indie sample. There's a song. It's a song called like Bruises by Chairlift, I think, or something like that. I don't know if you ever heard of it, but it's just like this weird, like kind of like poppy sounding song, and it's just got this girl singing, and it sounds very cutesy, but not at all like intimidating. It's like I tried to do handstands for you, and like it's just like it does not sound at all like a rap song. But I liked it. I looped it, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna rap over this. And like I thought the song turned out good. Whether or not it did, that's fine. You know, people can have their own opinions on it. But like I remember playing like, I was like, I'm a rapper and I play this song and he was like, this doesn't sound like rap music. It's like, it's like there's like a level of judgment just from like and I don't think it was necessarily like the way that I was rapping or anything like that. It was literally just this is not the vibe that I think he was expecting when I said I was a rapper. And so that was like maybe it was a disconnect. But then, admittedly, like that makes me kind of feel like shit, right? Like, oh, like this person doesn't like this thing that I put in time to create or whatever, you know? But like at the same time, like I also understand, like, not everything is for everybody. It's like if there are plenty of rappers who I don't necessarily like. There are rappers who I don't understand. Like a great example is Kendrick Lamar, honestly. Like, a lot of people like Kendrick. I just don't personally like his music all that much. It normally has to do with like the flow just to me sounds wrong on most tracks. But that's my personal opinion. But it's like so I get it if somebody's like, okay, I hear this music and it doesn't resonate with me. But there's still some level of my own insecurity, my own like I feel like maybe a pressure to kind of conform to what other people think a rapper should be. You know what I mean? And like maybe even like in the rap battling community, that might even be true. And interestingly enough, like you might be maybe like an example of somebody who I think is probably like who is unapologetically authentic in the rap battling in the rap battling space. Like as you are, like you don't battle as a character. You're pretty much yourself. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I'd have to go back. It's like I think you do have some like old like gun bar battles and stuff. I don't know exactly your entire catalog. We all evolve over our years as well. But yeah, I would say for the most part like you tend to be yourself. Like even you talk about this a lot. Like in terms of your delivery, you're kind of like you're not like a super loud yeller. You just kind of rap. Personally, I think what you do is phenomenal. And I think that there like variety is the spice of life, right? And I think rap battling as a whole needs a lot of different variety to be super entertaining because you got a lot of different styles and stuff.
Yeah. I appreciate that, man. I think because I definitely get what you're saying about like feeling, I mean, obviously, in hip hop, there's a million different subgenres, and I think even in battle rap, there's subgenres. People tend to look at battle rap like it's just one thing, but you can't tell me that Hitman Holla is the same genre as Carter Deems, is the same genre as Bender, is the
Right.
same genre as fucking Bangs. You know what I mean? They're all
Yeah.
so it's all different. And I think, I look at it like, um, I think what I try to do when I see somebody who's like, considered incredible, who I like don't, maybe I'm not a fan of, like, perfect example is like Charlie Clips. I never understood. Well, I shouldn't say it's not that I don't understand, but that's the point. I was never a fan, but if you can get to a point where you understand, if they reach, they must be doing something. If everyone is, if they're that successful, and if you kind of figure out what that is, like personally, I think, what he writes is shit that like everyone else could come up with. But there's something intangible about the way he carries himself, his personality, delivery that, makes him likable to a mass audience. So if you can kind of pick up things from people you aren't necessarily a fan of, it just, it makes you more open-minded and more, maybe well-rounded. So I try to like, I try to, kind of force myself to kind of go outside of that, sticking to just my favorites and be like, okay, I'm not a fan of this guy, but let me try to figure out what he's doing that, is working. And, I don't know. It's just, to your point, it just kind of gets you, you just get a fuller perspective.
Yeah. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, like the other kind of thing that I was gonna mentioned was like in respect to freestyling, which it also again kind of feels like the same way, where it's like I feel like I have to conform to what people expect of me as a like if I say I'm a rapper, like yeah, I remember going to a party and somebody just being like, "Oh, you rap? Okay, well, can you freestyle for me?" And it's just like that seems to be kind of like included, right? Like it's in the package. If you call yourself a rapper, there's an expectation that like, you're capable of that. Really freestyling is a whole different like, animal where you just kind of like have to practice it a lot. And, you just like, but the thing is like you can practice it a lot, but like, I mean, you can say this about rap battling too, but like even if you practice it and get really good at it, like it doesn't really do much for you, right? Like nobody, like there aren't very many people making money off of their freestyling ability. There are people, but like, it's not a lot of them, and it feels like a
Lower,
party trick.
yeah, it's a lower ceiling, right? Because there's that one guy that dude Harry Mack. I'm sure you've seen his videos. He's a dude that like goes up to people on the street and like
Right,
give me a bunch of words and I'll freestyle. And
right,
it's like it's an amazing thing to be able to do just so consistently, come up with that material on the spot. But there's a low ceiling because it ends up getting really repetitive, right? Like it suddenly every video it's like, okay, he's going to mention what color shirt he's wearing and what, because there's only so
yeah,
many things you can draw inspiration from. It's
yeah,
going to get repetitive. All you have is kind of your observations
right.
around you, so there's just not as much depth of the material you're going to be able to come up with.
Right. Well, see, this is how I Jedi mind tricked that person, and how I do this when I try to, trick people into thinking I can freestyle, right? Which, like obviously, if you're a rapper, you know how to rhyme things, right? Like you kind of have in your head a dictionary of rhymes. Yeah, you can
Sure.
freestyle a little bit, but like, so here's what I did. I just happened to notice that there was a playing card deck there, so I was like, all right, I pulled out the deck, and I just like, all right, I'm just gonna start pulling off card after card, and I'm gonna just like rhyme off of whatever that jack whack, just like it's
Yeah.
so basic and so easy, but like all I have to do, two, you, new, blue, like it's literally just there. And all you have to do is like three, four. They're so easy, right? Like, and it's just like, but like, yeah, I mean, it's still, unfortunately, this expectation's like, okay, freestyle, figure, like start pulling things out of the air and like,
Shit. Yeah. I when people ask me to, which it doesn't happen much these days because how often am I at like house parties and shit anymore? But like,
yeah,
yeah, my response now is just I don't rap for free, which is like not totally true, but it's a way to get people to stop asking me. So that's
right.
usually works.
Yeah. No, funny enough, you were talking, I think, in a podcast about how battle rap brings people together who normally wouldn't be brought together. I mean, like I mean, you can look at this podcast, but like, obviously you're like a Jewish guy from like Chicago, or I mean, you're from Missouri, or
No, so I grew
correct
up
me if
in
I'm wrong.
I grew up in the Chicago suburbs, and then I went down to Missouri for school. So I was there
Okay.
for about 5 years, and then have been back in Chicago ever since. So yeah, most of my life in the Chicago area.
Right. And then, I just grew up in Florida, I mean, like we are probably alike in a lot of ways. I mean, I feel like we're actually like weirdly alike in a lot of ways. Honestly, we probably both have like we're both married. We have white collar jobs. My favorite. Well, you said this at one point. Who's your favorite rapper right now?
My favorite rapper right now, actually, probably
I've had one answer since like 2009. So
I've said Royce a lot. I'm actually really into Griselda the last couple of years.
yeah, I haven't really. I'll be honest. I haven't listened to a lot of Griselda. I like some of it. Like I like there was one song by like Conway that I liked a lot. But like in general, like I don't know. It's like I think it's Benny the Butcher that has like a higher voice. I'm just not a fan of. I don't know.
The West Side. Yeah. Um,
Or West Side. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 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 I'm admittedly like I got to a point where I just like kind of stopped like picking up on like the newer music. I'm stuck in like a time capsule of like my old shit. Um, and it's just like not just hip hop either. It's also all music in general. I don't really like listen to the radio anymore. I don't listen to like the only music I listen to is stuff that like I listened to like five and then earlier years ago. But yeah, yeah. For me, like I've always said Royce. Like Royce has been my favorite rapper since like I think 2009 or so is when he came out with a. It was like a Return of Malcolm. He did a song over like well, it was on it was on one of the bar exams, but it was on a different beat. But then he also did a verse over "I'm Me" by Lil Wayne. Both of those songs are just like absolutely insane. And then he just kept on dropping track after track. He like I could go down the list, but like he just is incredibly good when it comes to like rhyme schemes. He changes his style a lot, and he always makes it work somehow. Like if you ever listen to like his older stuff, like Death, what is it? Death is Certain. I can't remember. Like Build and Destroy the mixtape. Like he used to have like a style where it was just like a slower, methodical flow, where it's like laws and rules don't apply to me. And then like now he's just like I could go down the road and I could go like it depends on the song. Every song is different, but
Very
like
unorthodox on in some.
yeah,
Um,
but like Royce is hands down like when it comes to lyrical content, his flow, his rhyme schemes, everything. He in my opinion has put out like the music I enjoy the most.
he has this one on I think it was Layers was the album. He's like some about the Casios on the Styleway grand piano. I would kindly pass him. Like he's just all over. Like he kind of it's like that Detroit thing where he's like a little lagging behind the beat and then catches. Like I love that type of shit. It's just listen to. Love
Yeah.
that shit.
And then another interesting, like, parallel that I heard, like you said, your like number one celebrity crush is Aubrey Plaza, so you and I can arm wrestle over her later.
Okay.
Yeah,
So, yeah, and we both got the red beard. We might be related, man.
yeah, yeah, possibly. I'm just, you're out of shape, deaf cousin or something.
Hey, love it.
Uh,
Um,
and then like yeah, I mean like I so yeah, I mean I also like I mean I had a phase of like Blink 182 and like I like when I was like early 20s I just dated a lot of emo girls, so I just like started listening to a lot of the stuff that they listened to. So
like,
like My Chemical Romance, AFI, but I actually like all of that music. Fall Out Boy, Shitspire. I
yeah.
don't know, have you ever listened to Fall Out Boy?
Oh yeah, I mean they're though that's they grew they're from a Chicago suburb, very close to where I
Oh, I
grew
didn't
up.
even know that.
Yeah. They so yeah, it was interesting because I don't know if this was your experience or where, the type of area you grew up, but like going to out like school in the late 90s, early 2000s in like a predominantly white Jewish suburb. I was being a fan of rap and someone that liked to rap was sort of like some outcast, like weird shit to do. Like I was pretty, like I kind of got like clowned a little bit for being, I was like for being the rapper kid in that in that environment. Like
Yeah,
it was like I was kind of isolated and like my friends weren't into freestyling and shit. Like
yeah, yeah.
that wasn't until like I got out to like in high school, I feel like it started becoming more widely accepted. But yeah, I was sort of the weirdo in like in younger years for being like the rapper kid.
Yeah, no, well, see, yeah, I don't know exactly chronologically how this happened, but obviously, like when Malibu's Most Wanted came out, man,
Oh,
was that a bad time to be a white rapper?
that's
Yeah. That was like, that was basically a whole movie about like everything people stereotyped you as, or at least me. No, I mean, so I was in middle school, and like, so like my middle school is a little bit segregated in a way because like it's just like black kids hung out with black kids, white kids hung out with white kids. There was like not a lot of Asian kids, but they would hang out with each other. I don't in my middle school I don't remember seeing a lot of Latino people, but in high school I did. But either way, like the people just kind of hung out with each other. There was a small group of people who were white and they like would wear like urban clothes. They would wear like South Pole and other things like that. But for whatever reason, this is the part that always kind of weirdly seemed odd to me was that like they kind of hung out with each other. So it's like it's both the cultural appropriation, but like not actually integration, which is weird. I was like I was just like a weird outcast already, just in general, because like I was this kid, like I had like a thing called an FM unit, which is like a little headband that would go over my head. It looked like, like the headband that girls would have and shit. So I was like already like, and I was also chubby and like, so lots of things that like just made me kind of a target for like, just being like a nerd or whatever. And so and it's like I've kind of evolved and become okay with all these things. But when I was growing up, like I mainly just like when I was in middle school, like most of my friends were just like the people like the group at the cafeteria was all black people, and so they were all obviously like not all of them, but like there was a circle of people that I hung out with directly who almost all of them were rappers of some kind. They didn't necessarily ever like some of them probably never actually like pursued it, but this was a thing that they did like every single day at lunch. And so that like is kind of how I like really started like this became part of my identity where I was like, oh, this is what I do. Because prior to that, it was like rap was something I listened to, but it wasn't like me. And then, yeah, that was kind of how I gravitated toward it. High school was a different experience, I think, for me because I was just I was isolated. It's a weird thing. Like it was just a weird timing. My mom tried to kill herself, and I was just like going through my own like mental like things. So I was very isolated from everyone, and so like I would like sit in the halls by myself, like in the halls of like high school and shit and just listen to music and I listened to like a lot of that stuff, that underground shit. I would be listening to like Dance with the Devil. I would be listening the album I listened to the most back then was Rip the Jacker by Cannabis. And I listened to that like every single day. I used to get in trouble for it. I know I've had my CD player taken away like multiple times because it was too loud or whatever. I remember there was a kid who kind of like, and it was like a white kid, and he was just like kind of like making fun of me because I was like, I think he called it Halloween music, I think, because like I think the beats might have had some samples in them or something, and maybe it sounded dark. But it's like if you actually listen to that album, it's a great album. But like by Cannabis, Rip the Jacker. It's got great production. There are definitely like skits all throughout the thing. It's kind of like narrated, and it's kind of like about Jack the Ripper. I don't know if you ever heard it, but
What's the album that has like Poet Laureate
yeah,
and
yeah.
Leviticus or whatever?
Yeah. And like
Yeah,
every
I
single song was like named after like a Bible verse or something, I
yeah,
think.
okay, I used to bump that shit for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I specifically remember this one kid who like called me out and was like, was like saying that it was like, dorky or whatever. It's like saying it was like Halloween music or whatever. And then ironically, like a couple years, like 3-4 years later, I happened to see him like on Facebook and he's like a big fan of Hobson. And I'm like, what the
Yeah.
fuck are we talking about? How did we go from this to Hobson? Like, come on. Like, this is literally like the epitome of, or not, yeah, it's like literally just
Halloween music.
this dude has fucking contacts in his eyes like to make himself look like a vampire, and you're fucking clowning me for listening to Cannabis. What the fuck, bro? But like, I mean, it is what it is. Like, I mean, I get it. Like, kids are kids, and like, but like, it was just like weird to me. It's like full circle. It's like, it's like I was listening to this shit like before, and then like it got more pop. I think in general, especially I think maybe in the white world, like hip hop became more acceptable and more like commonplace, I think, in the mainstream, especially over the last like 20 years for sure.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah.
All right. I don't know where we are with this. I mean, I know you probably, you might be getting burnt out. So I do want to, I want to end with a question. So two things. So I decided to start doing this, and the very first time I did it was with Appa. So the idea is that I'm going to give you a question that Appa basically gave me, right? So, and then I'm going to ask you to give me a question, and I'm going to ask that question to whoever comes next onto the podcast. So it could be any question whatsoever. I do ask that the question is not related to battle rap, but other than that, anything whatsoever. But the question that Appa gave me to give to you is, and I might mess it up. I'm paraphrasing based off of memory, but I think it was like, I think the question that he gave me was like, if you had a podcast and you were going to ask every guest one question, what would that question be?
Oh shit! So I got to come up with that question, and then
I blame Appa. Go.
Yeah, I'm a tweet at him after this. Okay, if I had a podcast, what's a question I would ask all my guests?
Yeah, I might steal it too, so I'm taking notes.
I um I'm trying to decide if I'm going to go funny or serious. I think I'm going to go serious.
You can go either way with it. Yeah.
Yeah. I always like to just ask people like what's what's that one thing that I'll say what's I don't want to limit to one thing. I say name three things that keep you going, and I would leave it open ended like that because that could mean either like it on a really deep level, like you know your kid or something that like on a literally keeps you going, or it can just be like you're having a bad day. What's something to you know put on a fucking knowing a baseball game is coming on or binging The Simpsons or playing a video. Like it can be like kind of trivial hobbies that just kind of give you comfort, or it can be like deep, this is really what drives me. But I'd say what are three things that keep you going, and just
Right.
leave it open like that.
All right. All right. So how about this? I'm gonna call an audible here.
All right.
I'm gonna propose to you that you answer your own question, but then yeah, I will use that question and I will ask the next guest that comes on, and I will use that as the question.
That works.
So for you, what are three things that keep you going?
Yeah, and I'll do a variety of answers here. Like on a less serious, just kind of trivial level, I do put like sports and specifically Chicago sports in that category because um I remember vividly that like during kind of like lower periods that I've gone through, I'd always be like, all right, I need to just make it to the next yeah, I'm a big hockey fan, so the next Blackhawks game or the next Cubs game, because then, you know, I know that night I'm gonna have something to put on and just think about nothing else. Like just get to, sometimes when you're in a weird mode, you just need to get fully lost in something. And sports is just something that does that for me.
Right.
Um,
I mean, your favorite sport is hockey, right?
um, it's probably, yeah, probably hockey or to watch hockey, to play baseball, but
Okay.
love hockey, football, and baseball would be my top three. But just like I just love. I think having like a routine, a ritual is important, especially in a time where you're going through some shit, and just know you can turn a game on and just kick back is something that will never get old to me.
Right.
Um, or what's like I mean, it's a cliche answer, but I wouldn't just like people like my parents, my wife all come to mind, but I would just leave it more at just like loved ones in general. Like I just I used to be a lot isolated is too dramatic, but like I was a lot more closed off, more introverted, and I think just you know my wife, I give the credit for bringing that out of me because she her out, but inherently, I've just gotten a lot more outgoing from kind of that push. And so just it's given me a lot more appreciation. And I think the pandemic did that too, like just being closed off and, locked in for so long. It actually was like, it makes you appreciate those times where you do go get to be around your people and,
Yeah.
just, or so I've just, have a new appreciation for, meaningful interactions like that. Um, and then, truth be told, I would say just the act of creating, whether that be for me, it happens to matriculate in battle rap in most cases, but just like, you know, knowing that you have, hopefully I've, quite a few decades left on this earth. And so, knowing there's you could take up a new craft or master the craft you're currently working on. You
Yeah.
can just you can build your life, you can create things, and just those that kind of notion of there being infinite possibilities. um it kind of makes me feel like, all right, on the days where I'm in a good I that's something I value really highly.
Yeah. I mean,
That came out solid for just coming up with that question, I thought.
Yeah, no, that's
I'm
good.
happy with it.
No, I mean, in terms of like mastering a craft that, as you get older, see, I wish, yeah, it is what it is. You only get one life. You gotta kind of like maybe be content with like, the things that you do. I do wish maybe that like I did things in a different order. Like for example, like rap battling, even though like yeah, you do want to like there is like some pressure. Okay, yeah, you want to be young to because you want to be able to develop and et cetera, et cetera. But like there's nothing like stopping you from being a rap battler if you're like 50 and starting. It's possible. It's not common, but on the other hand, like if I like right now, I'm I'm struggling to figure out my age. 36, right? So I literally just turned 36. So I've been thinking like, oh, okay, like maybe I want to get like into some like Muay Thai or like Brazilian Jiu Jitsu or some shit like that. And then I'm like looking like at podcasts and I'm like, oh yeah, by the way, I can never actually do any of this like on a really competitive level. Like, cause like you already have people that have been training for 10 years. And then some of those people like started when they were like 15 and et cetera. It's like, I can't be somebody that starts a martial art at 35 and then like really competes at any real level of like, I don't know. So it's like if I had done that when I was younger and then waited until now and been like, okay, I'm done with that. I'm going to go focus on rap battling now. Like that probably would have worked out a little better.
Maybe, but I mean, it's again, I grapple with this too because I'm like, do I? It's really cool that I have this niche that I've like, you know, humbly gotten really good at and have had a great amount of success in. I love that, but I'm like there, I know there are people out there who just like are involved in so many different things and like, these like Renaissance people that, have like 10 different unique, and granted, it is what it is. Like there's only so much time in the day, but sometimes like, man, I wish I, had branched out and, had more, but at the same time, I don't know many people who, even have battle rapping as a hobby. So that's pretty unique in itself. But I
Yeah.
do grapple with that. Like, do you want to just really laser focus on one thing and like master it, or do you want to like kind of branch out and be more of a jack of all trades? And so, those are the decisions we make. But I don't see a reason that, especially something like I I've never done any form of combat. I like I've always thought about like learning to box or, like you're talking about. I don't see a reason why, maybe not at a highly competitive level, but it's still like a great skill to have. Like,
Yeah. I mean,
I,
I
don't
agree.
know. I see the
Agree.
homie organic posting that he's been doing some like
Yeah.
know the different types of like martial arts and shit, but he's like become like a master at at something that he's always posting about. I'm like, you can always pick this shit up, maybe, you got to level set your expectations, but
Yeah.
the reason you can't, just do it for the experience and other benefits.
I mean, yeah, yeah, I agree with you. But then like, there's like, I just feel like for me, I don't know, maybe it's like historically part of what has always driven me is being competitive maybe I'm not sure I think that's what it is I think like I think it's harder for me to say I'm gonna do this thing and focus my energy on it and like do it like 4 times a week, 5 times, whatever. Like and if I'm not doing it for like the purpose of trying to compete somebody like outcompete somebody. There's something about competition that like really kind of like makes like obviously it's an ego thing. Like there's no way it's not, right? Like you want to be better than somebody else or you want people to, see you as better than others. But there's also, a good like there's a positive from that. It's like some people are able to be more motivated to do a thing because they're driven to be perfectionists because of like their will to be better than others.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to like I don't know how to get that same level of I don't know if motivation is the right word, but I'm gonna say motivation and also just not take it as seriously as I can.
Yeah.
However, I mean, like I don't know. I've been trying to do that with guitar a little bit. Like I sat there and I was like, no, I'm not going to force myself to learn how to play like guitar at the highest level that I possibly can. I'm going to practice every single day for like 20, 30 minutes, and like, I'm gonna be consistent, right? Like I'm not gonna, so I mean, like, yeah, it pays off after a certain period of time. Like after a year of doing it, you're like, yeah, I can play all these little riffs and everything. I could do scales and like I know like a good amount of chords and all these other things. But I know I'm not competing on any level. I'm not, it's like there are definitely people with 1 year of experience in guitar that would wipe the floor with me. And like yeah, there's some level of like, okay, like I get that, for guitar, it's a little harder for me to feel like that maybe with like a combat sport or something, but I don't know. Anyway, yeah, we can wrap up if you want to, or you can reply, however.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, it just, yeah, it all depends on, what your kind of mentality you're in. I mean, I'm competitive too, but there's also levels to all that shit, right? Like we talked about it earlier. Like I play in a hockey league, but I never played growing up, and I'm trash at the sport. But I found a league of people who also are beginners, and so it's an even playing field. So I'm sure there's shit
Well,
out like that for everything. So
yeah, I mean that's part of the appeal too, is also like a community of people that like,
it-
you get to like, share a thing with. I wish like it's so unfortunate because where I am in Maryland these days, they don't really have a great like rap battling league. They used to have like several leagues in Baltimore, but now
okay.
they're I don't know, they seem to have like kind of fallen off the earth a little bit. So it's like if like I don't want to I like I can't really like I can't have the same like homie around the way type of like relationship with somebody that lives in like Staten Island, or you seem cool, but like, it's like if you were like, like around the corner, like, yeah, we could go hang out, get some beers and all that other shit.
Yeah.
But like, but yeah, so I mean, it's like, it's like trying to find like maybe like different communities in something other than rap battling, or unless I can figure out a way to make rap battling happen here. But one day,
Sure.
there's also a financial commitment to that.
Yeah,
But anyway, so wrapping everything up, do you have anything that you want to plug? I know you got your TikTok, your Instagram.
yeah. Just at Steve XQZ on every platform. I'm trying to get a little more consistent with posting, and then I've kind of been on uh, a little break from battling, but
I
just
was
kind
going
of
to
the
mention
last
that.
couple weeks have started to get some things in the works again. I'm kind of feeling the hunger, so you'll be hearing from me soon. But
Do you know who your next battle is going to be against yet, or are you still? I mean, you don't have to tell me if it's under
yeah,
that.
it's the one I'm working. I can say this because it's been announced before, but I was supposed to battle A Ward at the end of last year. I had
Right.
to cancel because of a family emergency. So, I kind of gave my word to shout out to TOS. That's the league that I told them not doing anything else till I make up for that one, since I was the one who had to cancel. So, I don't know when it is yet, but that's going to be the next battle that happens. So I'm working on getting that rescheduled
That's
right
going to
now.
be fire.
Yeah, that's going to be a nice challenge, but should be entertaining.
Yeah, and you guys both have styles that I think complement each other really well. So I'm really excited to see how that pans out. Another thing, like yeah, man, I really wanted to see you. I think on the compliment battle card. I know you did one with Sharon.
Yeah,
Those compliment battles are honestly like my favorite things in rap battling. I wish more people like compliment battles, like, but yeah, those are incredible.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was a blast. I'd love to do another one. I think I'm probably, I would need to be a little bit more active because I think it seemed like he booked folks that are a little more, in the
Oh yeah, there
conversation
there were a lot of
regularly right
like
now. And I was
top
kind
tier
of a
names.
last minute to be transparent. Like I was kind of a last minute replacement when I did the one with Sharon, but nevertheless, it was an amazing experience. Always will appreciate that. And who knows, maybe when I get back outside a little more, I'll get that opportunity again.
Yeah.
But yeah, this next card looks amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I have no doubt that like as long as you're battling, opportunities are going to throw themselves at you. You had a line in that what was that line that you had with Sharon? You said Sharon has never found a clit, the clit always finds him. Like that's
Hell
that's
yeah.
you as a rap battler, right? You don't have to find these opportunities. If you just rap like you rap, those opportunities are going to find you. And on that happy note,
Yes, sir. Appreciate it, man. This was a great conversation. Really appreciate you having me, man.
yeah, I appreciate you for taking time out to do that, and I hope you have a great day.
You too, man. Take it easy.
All right, see you, bro.